Now, you know me. I'm never one to accord Nadine Dorries with much praise if I can help it. But this morning, or this afternoon now, I must say I want to take my hat off to her a little bit. And I must apologise also for looking so tired today. I was up most of the night because I had a leak in my office. That's not innuendo. It's rainwater, and I'm not quite sure where it came from, but my office floor was suddenly flooded about 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'd been doing some animation work because I finally got my animation character designed, and I have to grab every moment available. I was treasuring the opportunity to do some drawing early in the morning, and I was doing it on the kitchen table, and I then went into my office and I found everything was wet, and I thought, "Oh God, what's happened?" And one thing led to another, so I was up most of the night, and then teaching this morning. So I'm only just getting back to functioning, and and I'm hit with a Nadine Dorries article about Michelle Mone. And if ever there was a Sunday morning marmalade dropper, it was Baroness Michelle Moon's turn on TV. I couldn't believe what I was seeing and hearing. Woo! This is, it's extraordinary because when she's good, Nadine Dorries has a turn of phrase which is quite extraordinary. And I particularly remember a speech that she gave in the House of Commons where she talked about the responsibility of a constituency MP to her constituents, over and above all the thing of being whipped into following whatever the government of the day wanted. And it was powerful, and it was impassioned, and it was clever, witty, and forceful. And then we got the drivel of her sitting in committee rooms talking hogwash. And so that's one side of her. Then there's the plot, which is, well, it's a love letter to Boris, really. And it's it's student fiction, but it is a page turner. I mean, I'm not imposing it on anybody by any means. It is an acquired taste, but it's better than quite a lot of her novels about this person, that person of the four corners of the four streets, or whatever the guff is, and then you've got the stuff that she writes on Twitter, and they're all sort of different. It's as if she is a split personality, or employing an entire household of ghostwriters. I have no idea. I think the reality is probably that she suddenly has moments of tranquility or moments of passion, and she just writes well in those moments. And this is one of them. Her attack on Michelle Mone is brilliant. And she starts off, there she sat, her flaxen hair Dyson coiffed to perfection, soberly dressed. She sat in front of the suction section of a vacuum cleaner, a Dyson coiffed to perfection, soberly dressed in a black silk shirt and charcoal grey trousers, wearing a frozen expression that was both meek and woeful. I.e., Dickens could not have done better. The image was carefully crafted. For her first major interview on her role in a controversial multi-million-pound PPE deal during the pandemic, she was portraying a victim, a woman in the dock who had been wrongfully accused, a woman far removed from brash and outspoken Baroness Bra, who never passed up an opportunity to strip off to promote her Ultimo lingerie range. Did it work? It did not. In scenes Reminiscent of Prince Andrew's car crash Newsnight interview, Mone admitted she'd lied to the press and therefore to the public about her links to MedPro. This consortium, headed by her husband Doug Barrowman, was reportedly fast-tracked to win government contracts worth £200 million to supply PPE for 3 years. The couple insisted they had no involvement in the firm and would not benefit from the deal. Now it transpires it yielded profits of £60 million that were deposited into a trust with Mone, her children, and Barrowman's children as beneficiaries. And it goes on. And the purpose of this impassioned article, which, as I say, is brilliantly written, or at least the first part is brilliantly written, the rest then peters off into drivel, but I'm not going to torture you with it. But the bedrock of all this, the foundation of this attack, is really the unwritten bit. Well, if Baroness Mone, how did she become a member of the House of Lords? How was she put in? What justified her elevation to the House of Lords when no one put me in there? What did I lack that Baroness Mone has got except for duplicity and greed? And I think it's a good article, and I am left wondering that question myself. And my first instinct is to say, well, they're both in the same boat. They're both tarred with the same brush. But it's not true. It's not true. Nadine Dorries aspires to be Michelle Mone. Nadine Dorries wants to wear the ermine and strut around. And she can't. What makes Nadine Dorries so inferior to this woman who has lied to the media, to the world, this woman who has secreted away money, who has taken advantage of the vulnerable at a time of national emergency, who has profiteered from crisis? What makes Nadine Dorries so unworthy, and what makes Michelle Mone so worthy? And I think, part of this attack is an attack on David Cameron, who Nadine Dorries doesn't like. She thinks he's a rich boy, a toff. And I must point out, just in case anybody thinks I'm a Cameron crony, I'm not. I remember when he was at university, and I was given strict instructions by somebody who knew him that I should walk on the other side of the street if I saw him walking in my direction, and I always did. I then found that he was my MP when I came back from Greece, and I needed help getting hold of some documentation which had been stolen by a Greek lawyer, and that's a wonderful story in and of itself. And I wrote to David Cameron, and within about a week I was at the Foreign Office collecting a huge box of correspondence. And not only did I get every letter and every document that had been stolen, I got a great deal more, all of it in Greek. And I think the idea was to overwhelm me with the sheer volume. But in fact, it was very useful, and through that we were then able to win a case through the European Court of Human Rights quite quickly. And so I am grateful to David Cameron, but the reason we got that was because by that point he was leader of the opposition, and so a position that needed respect both nationally and internationally. So that was very, very useful. And I don't doubt David Cameron's skill. I also remember when Cameron stood up as leader of the opposition and gave speeches without notes, and I thought, this is impressive. It's an impressive memory trick. And Cicero used to do the same sort of thing. It makes you draw breath. It makes you sit up when somebody does that sort of memory feat. But it is just a trick, I'm afraid. And Derren Brown would be one of the first to stand up and say, yeah, it's just a ruse. I'm afraid it's a very clever ruse, and it requires a little bit of effort, a little bit of time, a little bit of training, and we haven't seen David Cameron do a lot of that since because it's too much like hard work, and I'm afraid that issue runs through the modern Conservative Party. These people don't want to put in the hard work. And Nadine Dorries, I think, is one of them. And Michelle Mone is definitely another. But Nadine, as I say, she has a gift. And when I see it, I want to salute it because I think it's inspirational.